all this was the hospital section. All this vastness you see, each one of these was a wooden block. You see, your grandmother only survived because she worked on the hospital block. Now, I know you're seeing grass, but I don't see grass. I see mud, just a sea of mud. And believe you me, if there was one blade of grass, you know what would have happened? You would have eaten it. My mother worked in Block 12. That was the infectious block. Typhus, dysentery, scarlet fever, diphtheria. Now, I know Block 12 because you see, from Block 12, you could actually see people walking along this street to the crematorium. It was right up against the fence, so this must be Block 12. It doesn't say anywhere. You know, you have got no indication. Oh, no, it's all been taken away and burnt. But you just look at the size of this, from there to there, and this housed about 1,000 women in here, and the death toll was, 500-600 a night. So all day long, you carried out the bodies from the night before.
Was it a good job for a prisoner to work in the infectious
Well,
block?
if my mother hadn't worked in here, she would not have lived 2 days. Now, all this was quarantine, as you know.
Yeah.
And on the very last day of the quarantine, a girl came over that comes from our hometown, and she promised to come at the end of the quarantine period. And of course, she did come. It had to be paid for that she came. I had to pay in bread. But she came and she took mother away, and she said, I've got a job for you in this hospital block, on this here, Block 12, which was the typhus block. Yeah. And she was here right through, working as a sort of a nurse, but of course she couldn't nurse anything. There were no
So what were the advantages of having a job in this block?
Well, can you imagine a tremendous advantage? First of all, she didn't have to be outside for the roll call, so she was spared the roll call twice a day, because the sick were not actually taken out to be counted. It was all done inside the block, and the same for the staff. So this was a very, very big advantage, not having to stand outside 3 or 4 hours twice a day.
Yes.
And of course, you were sheltered from the elements. I mean, it's cold here today, isn't it?
Very cold.
Right, well, what are you wearing? 5 layers of clothes, eh?
Quite a few.
Right, well, you'd imagine people in this here working when it snows, when it rains, when the sun is hot, in the summer and in the winter, 1 layer of clothes, the same layer of clothes day in, day night.
It's almost unimaginable.
Wet,
yeah.
In the wet, and
That's
you couldn't take your clothes off, so it was in order to live, you had to find some way of working indoors. Inside, or even inside the camp was better than external.
And how long did my grandmother work on this?
She was here
block?
almost throughout. She did tremendous work because although she couldn't save people's lives in the sense that she had no medicines to give them, but she was a tremendous woman as far as now you know, as a moral support.
I know.
I mean, you could keep people alive by just talking to them, you see, and begging them to live just 1 more day. And this is what she did, and she kept me alive by begging me to live another day. And I kept her physically alive by bringing stuff to keep her alive physically, and she kept me alive mentally. So very often when I was in quarantine, I got away. You see, this was a slave labor market, sort of, when you were in quarantine. And so the 4 women in the ruling party came to fetch you for work. Now, if you could get away during this commotion after a roll call, I used to find my way into here and straight up onto my mother's bunk, hid underneath a sick person, and that's where I remained throughout the day.
But what I don't understand is why did they not shoot the infectious and sick patients? Why did
well,
they
we'll
herd
come
them
to
into the one building?
No, it wasn't like they didn't shoot them. They were selected to die every day. Sometimes the staff had to carry out the people in front here. They were lined up here, and selections were carried out. Now, I went through a selection
in front of
after typhus.
I remember.
Mengele stood there,
yes.
and I
wearing
came
white
out,
gloves, if I remember.
wearing white gloves. I came out here. I was after typhus, and I had to strip naked and run. If you couldn't run, well, you were selected to go to the other side. But of course, I was after typhus.